Okay, so assuming you got that last part, we have our per unit, so direct materials, direct labor, and applied manufacturing overhead will give us a total per unit for part 1, right? And that's our solution using one predetermined overhead rate. Part 2 talks about how we're going to use management's considering activity-based costing. Half of the overhead would be continue using one overhead rate, and half of it would be distributed using the following engineering design time. Compute the unit product cost for 2 products using activity-based costing, and explain why the product costs differ between the 2 systems. So like, number 3 I can answer right away. They're going to differ because activity-based costing is more accurate. It can trace the cost because we have activity pools and multiple overhead rates, and yeah, explain why the product costs differ between the 2 systems, because activity-based costing is more accurate, and so you're going to be able to figure out those cost pools and allocate the costs more accurately, and really nail down those product costs. So half of it will be used the traditional and half of the overhead. So it is 576. Half will go traditional and half will go to activity-based. So over here we have 100%, right? We need half of this, that amount times it by half, 0.5. Half of 288,000 will be using traditional, and 288,000 will be using this ABC engineering time. So if we were using traditional, we would say half of it is using traditional, so the total for half of it would be 288. We still have the same number of hours, same allocation base, because we're still making these products on the old system. So we still have 24,000 hours using the old system, right? So the dollar amount divided by hours would give us predetermined overhead rate of $12. And we're trying to allocate not this full amount, but half of the amount. We're going to allocate half of it to the RASCON and half of it to the parcel. So based on $12 predetermined overhead rate. So in total, they use this direct labor hour in total. Let's paste that. And $12. Oh. And so in total they're going to need 96,000 here and 192,000. We can just check to make sure we've allocated all of that 288. Part of it goes to the RASCON, and a lot more of it will go to the parcel based on these direct labor hours that they use and the predetermined overhead rate. If we wanted it on a per unit basis, we could look at the number of units. Right, the number of units was 20,000. Number of units was 80,000. So this is a predetermined overhead rate, total allocated to each product, and units produced. So on a per unit basis, you would allocate $5, $4.80, and $2.40. So this was kind of the long way around getting the total and dividing it by units. Remember last time we can just get the direct labor hours and times it by the predetermined overhead rate. Let's just get that. Let's just double check ourselves. Direct labor hours times it by the predetermined overhead rate was 12, the new one, since we're only doing half of the overhead. Oh. Right, and so this should be $4.80 and this should be $2.40. Let's check ourselves. $4.80 and $2.40. So either way you want to do it, if you want to do it in a total to make sure that you have allocated the amount, then divide it on a per unit basis, or if you just want the per unit more efficient, however you want to do it though. So that's half of it is allocated using traditional. Half of it will be allocated using activity-based costing. So remember, this is the amount, we're going to times it by half. So 288,000 needs to be allocated using activity-based costing. Well, I know that I can see already this is half and half, so half of it should go to Rascon, half of it to Parcel, but the way we calculate activity-based costing would be the dollar amount divided by the total amount, total activity, dollar overhead divided by total activity would be give me my activity rate. Activity rate. And if I'm going to divide up this 288, I would use my activity rate times it by amount of activity consumed, and it should be half and half, but just to make sure, yep, it looks like it's divided right evenly in half, but now we have the dollar amount of overhead for Rascon and Parcel. Remember, we want it on a per unit basis. We're making 20,000 units and 80,000 Parcel. So dollar amount divided by units, $7. And so remember, both of these are overhead. We've divided our overhead of 576 between half to the traditional, half to activity-based costing. So these are both manufacturing overhead for the product. So we need both of these. So conventional, I guess you could call it, conventional manufacturing overhead calculation for 1 unit. And then ABC manufacturing overhead for 1 unit for the Rascon and the Parcel. Right. Conventional said it was this amount. So in total, the manufacturing overhead was $12 and $4.20. Previously, we said it was $9.60, so a lot lower for the Rascon, and $4.80, when really the true cost was the $12 and the $4.20. So that's our overhead. To get, let's see if it says on a per unit basis. It says it compute the unit product cost for the 2 products using the proposed activity-based system. So we have the manufacturing overhead. We need to add that to this manufacturing overhead. We need to add that to our direct materials and our direct labor. Manufacturing overhead. And then some total unit cost using ABC and conventional. Yep, and so that's what they're looking for 3-9.